I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, trying to piece together how my life fell apart, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I want to tell you what happened with my wife, Lisa. We'd been together for about 7 years, married for 5, and honestly, I thought we had a pretty solid life. No major fights, no signs of trouble. That was until I started noticing some weird stuff. Small things at first, you know. She'd come home late from work, but she'd be oddly secretive about where she'd been. Her phone became a fortress. She'd hide it, change her passwords, and if I tried to look, she'd get bitchy, accuse me of invasion of privacy. The usual. I figured maybe I was just paranoid, but then I caught her lying about little things and it added up. One day I was home early, something I rarely did because of my job, but I'd requested the day off. I was in the living room when I noticed her phone buzzing on the coffee table. It was a message from someone named Guide Dog Trainer. I didn't think much of it. I figured it was some trainer or some guy she worked with, but something made me curious. I glanced at her phone when she went to the kitchen and I saw the message. Looking forward to our session today. Can't wait to see you again. It was sent at 2 p.m. and she was supposed to be working late as usual. That phrase, see you again, hit me like a punch in the gut. I knew she wasn't talking about some boring work thing. I looked closer. There were dozens of messages, all flirty, all suggestive. Their conversations were mostly about her training sessions, but I could tell it was more than that. I had no clue what guide dog training involved, but I knew enough to sense something wasn't right. It shouldn't be that easy for someone to cheat behind my back, and especially not during what she called guiding practice. I was stunned. I mean, I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, to us. I'm blind, yeah, but I'm not stupid. She'd been acting weird, sure, but I didn't want to believe she'd be unfaithful, especially with some guy who helps her with her sighted guide sessions. And I knew that's what it was, her little excuse to justify sneaking around. They'd been making plans, I could tell from the tone of those messages, and the worst part was, her voice during her calls would change. She'd sound softer, more flirtatious. I'd catch her lying about where she was going, who she was with, and it all added up to one terrible conclusion. My wife Lisa had been cheating on me with her guide dog trainer. I kept the phone, tried to stay calm, but my mind was racing. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this? I'd never felt so betrayed, so broken. I mean, I love her, I really did, but this was beyond anything I could have expected. She was always bitchy, yeah, but I thought that was just her personality. Turns out, she was hiding a whole different side, one I didn't even know existed. Seeing those messages made me realize she'd been lying to my face every day, and I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and confusion. I didn't sleep that night, replaying it all over in my head. Her words, her lies, the betrayal. It hurt so much, more than I can put into words. The next morning I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I was furious, hurt, and I needed to hear her explain herself, but I was also scared of what I might hear. Still, I had to ask her. I had to know if she was really cheating or if I was just paranoid. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there, staring me in the face. I sat her down, told her I saw her messages and her reaction. She denied everything, called me crazy, said I was overthinking, that I was insecure and paranoid. She even said, "You're just jealous because I spend more time with the trainer than with you." That's when I knew her lies wouldn't stop and my trust was gone. I was standing there looking at her, feeling like I'd been punched repeatedly, and I realized my entire world was crumbling. After her latest denial and her bitchy tone telling me I was just insecure, I felt something inside me snap. I wasn't going to let her keep lying and dismissing what I knew was true. I needed proof, something concrete that would hit her where it hurt, something that couldn't be spun away with her bullshit excuses. I decided to go back through her phone when she was in the shower, hoping to find more convincing evidence. I'd always been cautious about invading her privacy, but I felt like I had no choice anymore. Trust was already dead, and I needed to know exactly what was going on. I waited until she was in the shower, then quietly took her phone from the hook by the sink. I was trembling, but I managed to unlock it. Her password was stupidly easy, just her birthday. I scrolled through her messages, her pictures, her call logs. It was sickening, really. I saw the texts between her and the trainer, drenched with flirtation, suggestive emojis, plans to meet up. There were photos of them together, her whispering into his ear, him smiling like a damn fool, and some of her in a revealing workout outfit during her training sessions. I saw her telling him she was so lonely and that she needed a real man's touch. All of it was right there. It didn't take long before I found a text that made my stomach turn. She told him she was so close to ending things with me, that she felt alive when she was with him. That was the moment I knew she'd been planning this for a while. I felt sick because I'd been blind to all of it, and now I had this mountain of proof that she had been lying, cheating, manipulating me for who knows how long. I couldn't believe I'd been so stupid, so naive. How did I not see the signs? How did I miss the fact that she'd been sneaking around during those training sessions? I felt a wave of anger and heartbreak like I'd never known. I was furious with her, but mostly I was devastated. I trusted her, loved her, and she'd been screwing some guy during her sighted guide practice sessions. I didn't even know what to do with all that emotion. Anger, sadness, betrayal were all swirling inside me. I put her phone back quietly, trying to keep my composure, but I knew I couldn't let this go. I had to confront her again, but this time with everything out in the open. I didn't want her to spin her lies anymore. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be a cuckold, that I wasn't going to be the fool who gets played. When she got out of the shower, I told her I saw everything. Every message, every photo, every lie. Her face went pale for the first time. She tried to act innocent, said I was making it all up, that it was just training and nothing else. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done, that I couldn't stay with someone who cheated on me, especially with a guy who helps her fake being sighted. She started yelling, calling me jealous, insecure, and accusing me of turning into some crazy psycho. But I knew her game. She was trying to deny the truth, but I had all the evidence I needed. The worst part was the look in her eyes when she realized I wasn't going to let this slide. That's when I knew she'd been caught, and she knew I was serious. Honestly, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I'd loved her, I truly did, but I couldn't keep pretending that this betrayal was something I could forgive. When she kept lying, I finally told her I wanted her out, that I'd had enough. I needed space to breathe, to think about what this all meant. Watching her stare at me, defiant and bitchy, I felt a cold resolve forming inside. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. I deserved better, and I was going to make damn sure she knew that. The confrontation blew up in a way I didn't expect. Lisa, of course, started with her usual blame shifting, crying, calling me insecure again, like that was supposed to somehow erase what I'd found. She told me I was overreacting, that she loved me, that it was just harmless fun to have some excitement outside our marriage. She even had the nerve to call me controlling, claiming I was trying to trap her. That's when I saw her true colors, the bitchy, manipulative side that she always kept hidden beneath the surface. I'd always thought she was just a little high maintenance, but now I realized she was a liar and a cheat, and she was willing to throw everything away just to get her kicks. I stayed calm at first, trying to get my head around it all. But the rage was building. How dare she sit there and deny everything when I had proof? I couldn't even look at her without feeling this burning anger. I told her I wanted her gone, that I couldn't keep living with her lies. She kept crying and begging, saying she'd changed, that she was sorry, but I wasn't buying any of it. Sorry doesn't undo what she did. Sorry doesn't make her not a cheater. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She freaked out at that. Told me I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything, that I was acting like a jealous, insecure fool. She said I'd never find anyone else because I was blind. Literally, I can't see, but I guess she meant it in some metaphorical way too. It didn't matter. I was done. I told her she could leave that night, and she stormed out, cursing, screeching about how I was ruining her life and how she'd make me regret this. Honestly, part of me felt nothing but relief. Finally, I was taking back control of my life. But underneath all that was a deep, aching hurt. I wanted us to be happy, to grow old together, and now I was faced with the mess of her betrayal. The days that followed were a blur. I stayed in my apartment, staring at the walls, trying to process everything. I kept replaying that moment in her bathroom, the look in her eyes, her lies, her fake tears. It all felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd never been cheated on before, and now I knew what heartbreak really looked like. I felt angry at her, angry at myself for not catching on sooner, but mostly I felt a profound sense of loss. I'd loved her, believed in us, but she'd thrown that all away for some affair with her trainer. The guy who was supposed to help her adjust after I lost my sight. That part stung even more, knowing she'd been screwing someone who was supposed to be helping us, and during her training sessions, no less. I started to dig deeper into what her training really involved. I found out that her trainer, his name was Jake, had been coming over almost weekly for what she called sighted guide practice. I never thought much about it at the time, but now I realized it was all a cover. They'd been flirting, touching, probably more. I had her phone, her messages, and I knew she'd been lying through her teeth. I felt sick thinking about him being in our house, helping her with her training, while all the while they were screwing around behind my back. I couldn't help but wonder if I had played a part in her cheating. Maybe she was unhappy, maybe she felt neglected because I struggled with my blindness. But that didn't justify what she did. In the end, I knew I had to decide what was best for me. I couldn't keep living with a woman who lied and cheated and who called me insecure or controlling when I wanted honesty and fidelity. I felt betrayed on every level. It was raw, life-shattering, but I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in that pain forever. I made up my mind. I was going to file for divorce. I wanted her out of my life for good, to start healing, to rebuild myself without her toxic presence. Looking back now, I realize I learned a few things. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts deeper than I thought possible. I learned that sometimes the people we love can turn out to be the worst enemies, especially when they're the ones who promise to be there for us. I also learned that confronting your pain head-on, no matter how ugly, is better than burying it. And most of all, I learned that I have to take care of myself, even if it means losing someone I once thought was my forever. Because if they can betray you like that, they never really loved you in the first place. The divorce process wasn't easy, but honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. I remember that first night after she left, sitting alone in my apartment, feeling this strange mixture of relief and emptiness. For years, I'd built a life with Lisa, believed in the marriage, trusted her completely. And now it was all gone, shattered by her lies and betrayal. I kept thinking about those training sessions, about how she'd lie with that bitchy sneer, about how she'd pretend everything was fine when she was secretly screwing that trainer Jake. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the empty space where she used to sleep, wondering how I missed all the signs, how blind I'd been literally and metaphorically. I started to focus on myself then. I needed to rebuild, to heal. I threw myself into work, worked long hours, tried to distract myself from the pain. But I couldn't escape the image of her with Jake during our supposed training sessions. I kept replaying those conversations, the flirtatious tone of her messages, the way she'd call him my trainer, like he was some kind of hero in her eyes. I knew she'd lied constantly about where she was, who she was with, and I wondered how many times she'd been sneaking away to meet him. It made me furious and deeply hurt at the same time. I thought I knew her, and now I found out I never really did. One thing I couldn't wrap my head around was her lying about everything. She'd come home and pretend everything was normal, even when I saw her acting guilty or nervous. Her bitchy attitude was just her way of deflecting, I guess. She'd insult me, call me paranoid or insecure, try to make me feel crazy for suspecting her. But I wasn't crazy. I had her messages, her photos, her timestamps. I knew she'd been lying about her whereabouts and that she'd been screwing Jake during her guide training. That realization made me feel sick, like I'd been played for a fool. I trusted her, and she'd turned out to be the biggest liar I've ever known. I also started to think about how she'd used her training sessions as an excuse to hide her affair. She'd say she was just practicing her guide skills, that it was just a hobby, but behind that was a sneaky, manipulative woman who was bedding someone else while I was at home, trying to deal with my blindness and trust her. It made me realize how good she was at hiding things, her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulation. She'd been pretending to be a caring wife, but behind my back she was screwing someone else. That thought made me want to scream. In the meantime, I got help from a counselor. I needed to process everything to figure out how I felt about all this betrayal. It was a roller coaster: anger, sadness, disgust, and a terrible sense of loss. I thought about how I'd loved her, how I'd trusted her, and how she'd repaid me with lies and cheating. I kept telling myself I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't betray me, who wouldn't lie to my face and screw around during training sessions. I realized I'd been really naive, believing she was just a little difficult sometimes, when in fact she was hiding a whole different person. The thing that hurt me most was the fact that she'd lied about her feelings. She told me she loved me, but her actions said otherwise. If she truly loved me, she wouldn't have cheated, wouldn't have lied. That's what really cracks me up now. She kept throwing around that she was sorry, but sorry doesn't fix the damage done. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that she was screwing her trainer during our supposed guiding practice. Sorry doesn't make her less of a bitch or less of a liar. I started realizing that sometimes love isn't enough, especially when it's tainted by betrayal. So I decided I wasn't going to chase her or try to make her see what she lost. She made her choice, and I had to live with that. I focused on healing, on moving forward. I knew I had to find a way to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly, and maybe someday I'd be able to forgive her too. But not yet. Right now, I just want to be free of the lies, the betrayal, the pain. I want to rebuild my life, my confidence, and learn how to trust again, this time with my eyes wide open. The months went by, and I won't lie, some days were worse than others. I'd wake up angry, then sad, then numb. Lisa moved out completely, and honestly, I didn't bother fighting her over anything. I just wanted her gone. I started focusing on myself, trying to find a new purpose, a way to rebuild what I'd lost. I got a new therapist who specialized in betrayal and emotional trauma, and that helped a lot. Talking through my feelings, unpacking everything she did, that was the start of really healing. But I never forgot. The images of her with Jake during our training sessions haunted me sometimes, and the anger would flare up again. One day, I decided to revisit the whole thing from a different angle. I knew about her affair. I knew all her lies, but I needed to understand why she did it. I knew she was a bitchy woman, manipulative and probably bored or just craving attention. Still, I wondered if she felt guilty at all. Did she even realize the pain she caused? Or was she just that selfish, the kind of person who throws away everything for a quick thrill? I went back through her messages, her photos, and I realized she was just a master at hiding her true self. She justified everything she did with her bitchy attitude, convinced herself she was entitled to live her life however she wanted. That realization pissed me off even more. Honestly, I spent a lot of time just staring at the ceiling, contemplating what her betrayal meant for me. I was angry at her, yes, but I was also angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. She'd lied, manipulated, and betrayed me, all while pretending to be the loving wife. It made me question everything about our relationship, about the vows we took, about what real love even means. Sometimes I'd think about her fake apologies, how she'd cry and say she was sorry, but I knew deep down she wasn't sorry, she was just sorry she got caught. That made me even angrier. Sorry doesn't undo years of betrayal. I also started to see how her bitchy attitude was just her defense mechanism. She'd lash out at me, call me insecure, tell me I was imagining things, all to distract from her guilt. She accused me of controlling her, even though it was her sneaking around, lying to my face. That was the thing, she always played the victim. It was her way of justifying her actions, making me the bad guy. But I saw through her bullshit now. I knew she was manipulative, selfish, and she didn't give a damn about me or our marriage. She wanted her fun, her thrills, and she didn't care who she hurt along the way. One thing I couldn't shake was a deep feeling of betrayal that runs deeper than just the affair. It was the fact that she'd lied about everything, that she'd pretend to be this caring, bitchy wife, all the while screwing around behind my back. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, and the worst part was realizing how much I loved her, how much I wanted us to be happy, and how blindly I'd trusted her. It's strange, really. I used to think love was enough to fix everything, but I was wrong. Love doesn't mean shit when someone is willing to cheat and lie. Eventually, I got to the point where I knew I had to cut her out of my life completely. No more emails, no more texts, no more pretending I didn't see what she did. I had to be strong for myself. I decided to block her number, delete her from social media, and focus on rebuilding who I am without her. It was painful, but I knew it was necessary. I couldn't keep carrying this weight of betrayal. I had to find my own happiness again, even if that meant starting from the ground up. And you know what? I learned something crucial from this whole mess. I learned that some people are just selfish and manipulative, and no matter how much you love them, they're not worth sacrificing your own peace of mind. I also realized that forgiveness isn't about excusing what they did. It's about learning to let go of the anger and pain so you can move forward. It's about accepting that some betrayals cut so deep they change you forever. But the good news is you can survive. You can come out stronger even if it takes time. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone in my shoes, it's this: never ignore the signs. Trust your instincts and don't let anyone make you feel crazy for seeing the truth. Now, looking back, I realize how much I've changed. I used to believe in forever, in the idea that marriage was built on trust and honesty. Turns out, even the strongest bonds can be broken by betrayal, especially when lies are involved. I guess I learned the hard way that love isn't enough. Trust, respect, and loyalty are the foundation, and without them, everything crumbles. I don't hate Lisa anymore, but I definitely don't love her either. I just feel sorry for the woman she's become, someone so selfish and manipulative that she could throw away a marriage like trash. Living through her cheating with her trainer, Jake, was one of the most humiliating, painful experiences of my life. But it also forced me to confront my own strength. I had to dig deep, find my resilience, and realize that I did deserve to be lied to or used. I learned that I can be whole again, even if part of me is forever scarred by her betrayal. I've moved on and I'm focusing on my own healing, my independence, and rebuilding my life from scratch. It's not easy, but it's necessary. What I want anyone reading this to understand is this: never ignore the signs. If someone is lying, hiding things, or making you feel insecure or paranoid, listen to your gut. Trust is everything, and once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. But more than that, don't be afraid to walk away if someone betrays you, because staying only prolongs the pain. I learned that the hard way, and I hope anyone going through something similar finds the strength to do what's best for them, even if it hurts at first. Finally, I want to say this: there is life after betrayal. It's not easy to rebuild, but it's worth it. I'm not perfect, and I still carry the scars of what happened, but I've become more cautious, more aware. I know now that love is a two-way street, built on honesty and respect. If someone crosses the line, no matter how bitchy or manipulative they are, you have the right to walk away. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and sanity come first. I've learned that lesson the hard way, and I hope my story helps someone out there realize their worth before it's too late.